I always felt that movement was the greatest therapy. Even if it was just, I have a friend now who's been sick, and I walk with him a couple of times a week. We try to, and we got to get out of the house. We just got to move. And when you're moving, you're joking, you're thinking, you're doing, and it's very important to stay in motion.
Welcome to Believe in Progress, the American Association for Cancer Research Foundation podcast. Join us and be inspired by the incredible stories of those who have faced cancer with strength and resilience, and the medical professionals who are working tirelessly to find new treatments and ultimately a cure. Believe in Progress isn't just about the science of cancer. It's about the human side of this disease. Together, we can make progress in the fight against cancer and bring hope to those who need it most. Welcome to the Believe in Progress podcast, brought to you by the AACR Foundation. I'm your host, Mitch Stoller, Chief Philanthropic Officer at AACR. Today, we have an extraordinary story of resilience and determination. Our guest, Alan Kaufman, is a former Northwell patient who overcame a near-fatal case of stage 4 metastatic melanoma. An avid runner and cancer survivor, Alan's journey is a testament to the power of hope and the advancements in cancer treatment. Alan's story is particularly inspiring as he prepares to run in the New York City Marathon this fall. Before his diagnosis, Alan had participated in the marathon every year since 1992, often running as a guide with Achilles International, an organization that helps people with disabilities participate in mainstream athletics. In 2017, his battle with cancer forced him to miss the marathon, but by 2018, Alan was back on the course, this time as an Achilles athlete himself. His journey from a cancer diagnosis to marathon training embodies the incredible spirit of resilience and the transformative impact of medical advancements. Join us as we explore his incredible story and the impact of cutting-edge therapies on his recovery and return to running. Alan, welcome to Believe in Progress. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Really honored to have you here today.
Mitch, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
And I asked you to start off to tell the audience that you already did your walk run this morning.
I try to work out 7 days a week. I can no longer run, so I walk. But because the distance is shorter walking, I walk twice the amount of time every morning. But I got out. The weather was better here in New York today. And it always, I get up at 4:30 in the morning to do it, so I get it out of the way quickly before it gets warm.
That's fantastic. Well, that inspires me. Thank you for that, Alan. Can you start by sharing now how you first discovered something was wrong and what led to your diagnosis of stage 4 metastatic melanoma?
In 2017, I was working as a freelance producer, writer, and working on different projects, and each one kind of shriveled up and died one by one. And towards June of 2017, I didn't feel right. And I thought maybe it was because my work wasn't going well, and I questioned why I felt so down all the time. I went to one physician who said, "It's just you're depressed, get over it." Gradually, as my projects all fell apart, I realized it can't get any worse than this. And then suddenly it did. One morning, my wife woke up. She found me with sandals on my wrong feet. I was having accidents around the house. I poured coffee out onto the counter. I stepped on the cat. She asked me to endorse the back of a check, and I couldn't write my name. So the initial reaction was, "You're having a stroke. Let's get to urgent care." So we did that. We went to urgent care. They suspected the same thing. I hitched a ride in an FDNY ambulance to the ER in our neighborhood. After a bunch of scans to my chest and to my head, the attending physician drew the curtain around my gurney. He looked at my wife and I, and he said, "I wish I could tell you it was only a stroke." And it was then that he revealed they had found masses in my brain and in my chest. And off I went to Northwell, and eventually 5 tumors were detected in my brain and a large one in my left lung. I underwent back-to-back surgeries to go after the 2 large tumors in my brain, and then endured gamma knife radiation and 2.5 years of immunotherapy.
Where is Northwell in Long Island, or is it in the city?
Northwell is it's on Long Island. It's throughout the state of New York. But I was lucky enough, just by sheer circumstance and chance, to have been sent to the ER at Northwell here in Queens, because I was relegated into the care of the greatest neurosurgeon imaginable and the greatest oncologist imaginable. all by sheer luck.
Wow. How did your family react to the diagnosis, and what were your initial thoughts, and what were their initial thoughts and concerns?
My wife is a cancer survivor. She had
Really?
survived colorectal cancer 3 years earlier in
Goodness.
2014. So we had already gone through the process, the anger, the acceptance, okay, what do we do now? And she was a real trooper. We walked every day for 6 weeks to radiation in Manhattan. She was on chemo. So I guess emotionally, we already knew what it felt like to get news like that. But of course, with me, there was and I don't admit this to many, but there was a certain giddiness and learning that all my other professional problems had like flown out the window. Suddenly, all the projects that had disappeared no longer mattered. My entire focus was now on getting well. And I don't remember the conversation exactly, but when the neurosurgeon sat me down and said, we got to do back-to-back surgeries, which eventually lasted 11 hours, my first question to him, very naively, was, do you think I can do the marathon in November?
Right.
And he gave me a look, if like, you'll know
sure
if you can do it or
look.
not. And I was like, yeah, right. But he was right. I couldn't do it. But, it was odd that one of my first reactions on getting sick was, oh, no, the marathon.
Right.
It's going to mess up my training.
Right.
I know it's absurd and very petty in the grand scheme of things, but that was truthfully my reaction. Okay, work is done. What about the marathon now?
I think I would react the same way. I enjoy running. I'm not a marathoner, but I love playing pickleball and playing, being active in sports. I think I would probably react exactly the same way.
Maybe it's the psychology of a newly diagnosed cancer patient. I don't know for sure, but I can remember the one vivid memory I have, and I tell this to everybody who's diagnosed: stay off the internet.
Right.
Please do not go to Dr. Google. Misinformation, disinformation, old information, bad information. First night in the hospital, I'm on my phone, metastatic melanoma, and everything, cancer. Every website I went to, reliable or not, gave the same grim prognosis.
Good advice. No one's going to listen to it, but it's really good advice anyway.
Myself included.
How did well, first of all, how's your wife doing? Is she?
She's doing well. Thank you for asking. She was a survivor. She did well. She went into remission after about 6 or 7 months of fighting and doing the radiation. And we learned a lot along the way. There's nothing like a cancer diagnosis to take every other problem you have in your life and kind of just pigeonhole it. And when she first got sick, we were just dealing with a whole bunch of nonsense like every household, and that went away. And then when I got sick, it was the same thing. Get well.
And how important. So you were a caregiver. Now she became the caregiver and family. How important is that? And was that for you?
It is everything. My wife is wonderful. She's loving, she's honest, and she's dedicated to the point she became my navigator. When you're first diagnosed and all this stuff is being thrown at you, the scans, the surgeries, the blood tests, the prodding, she had a yellow pad and she just wrote everything down. And so, okay, Tuesday we have a CT, Wednesday we have a PET scan, Thursday we see the oncologist. She always knew what was going on.
Yeah. I imagine that was helpful for her, especially after, navigating her own cancer, right?
There was a certain therapy in taking charge of a situation, whether you're a caregiver or the patient, but somehow either self-navigating, which is what I learned to do, having somebody there with you. And to enjoy, when she was sick, every day we had this routine. We go to the French bakery, get a coffee and a pain du chocolat, and then walk to the subway. With me, it was chocolate chip cookies and a coffee at the snack shop at the treatment center.
Nice.
I found that routine was very, very helpful.
Very nice. If you don't mind, could you describe the surgeries and treatments you underwent, and the role that Dr. Schulder and Dr. DeVoe provided in your care?
Initially, I met with Dr. Michael Schulder, the neurosurgeon, and he sat me down and he said, you've got 2 large tumors we can get to. You've got 2 choices. We can either just keep you on the table for 12 hours or you do one surgery and come back later in the summer. And I thought, I'm here. I'm doing it all together at once. He said, I'm glad you said that. He explained, when you're laying there and you can't write your name and you're putting an X next to all the waivers that you signed before brain surgery, it's terrifying. You may not see again. You may not speak again. You may not walk, and everything's just acknowledging. And I'm laying there getting ready to be pushed into 11 hours worth of surgery, thinking, God, I hope, I want to do the marathon. I had 6 months earlier double double cataract surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, if I can't see again, I just spent $3,000 on surgery. He was wonderful. The only thing I was left with was a slight imbalance. I have trouble walking. I walk with a cane. I walk with hiking poles. I will take that. If that was the one thing I was left with, I can speak, I can read, I can write, I can celebrate. I did my own physical and occupational therapy. I taught myself to paint again. I would walk with my poles, and the sanitation guys would honk the horn and yell, "Where's the snow?" I became the guy in the neighborhood walking around with the scars and the bald head. It became my thing. I realized if you made it into some type of performance art for yourself, a routine, a celebration, you were a lot better off no matter what the prognosis was. And that was like the takeaway was like, okay, with Dr. Shoulder, if you want to think about doing the marathon, okay, do it. But a nurse did get me out of bed 2 or 3 days after surgery and walk me around the hospital in my booties and in my hospital gown. And she said to me, "This is your first workout." And that was a celebration.
That's absolutely. So, Alan, I actually had some surgery. I had some brain surgery as well for a problem called trigeminal neuralgia. And I had a wonderful neurosurgeon at Penn. And I know you just mentioned a minute ago how potential risky all this is. And, I didn't, going into surgery myself, I didn't think of it that way. I mean, I knew I wanted to deal with this pain and this problem I was having. And, it sounded like you had a lot of courage yourself because, you what did you say? You had 5 tumors in the brain?
I had 5. 2 are operable or resectable, as they say.
Yes.
The other 3 weren't, but thankfully, with the help of gamma knife radiation,
yes.
LINAC radiation, and the 2.5 years worth of immunotherapy, we treated the other 3. It's, you joke about brain surgery. I worked in television, and we always said when there was a problem, "Hey, it ain't brain surgery." And this time it was. I was joking, "Hey, it ain't television."
Right.
We went in, and they're going into my hard drive. And people were wishing me well. And I think the problem with social media was I think I overshared. And as a result, people overshared back. And the night before surgery, I'm looking at things on Facebook from people I haven't heard from in 20 years, suddenly all concerned and wishing me well, which was heartfelt. But it's an odd thing. Thankfully, I came out of it okay. But, there were moments when I'm thinking, wow, this is like maybe more serious than I think it is.
Yeah.
And my wife, I'm a documentarian, so I made sure everybody took pictures of me in the neuro ICU,
Mm-hmm.
laying there, and me walking with the nurse doing my workout. I recorded everything because I felt like it was an important element of my life to share with others. And that became my mission too. If I can share my story, inspire, give courage, and just, have conversations with other cancer patients, I'm giving back that way.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. I know I introduced my doctor, Dr. Lee. He won an award at an event we were hosting. And I said, "This is a man that knows more about me than most." He's had an inside look, right?
They're going into your hard drive, and the thing that fascinated me too, which I took certain delight in, is you'd have the resident doctors and the young doctors following up with you who would love to talk and share. One really terrific resident doctor, she put up my scans and said, "See those star-shaped things in your head?" I said, "Yeah, what are those?" She said, "Those are the things that are holding your head together, the fasteners." And for some reason, I just love that. And I said, some people have their head in the stars. I have stars in my head. And I relished small things like that because I just found them entertaining and comforting in some bizarre way.
So after your initial treatments, what was the recovery process like for you, both physically and emotionally?
Emotionally, it was okay. I can't get up and work today, but I will get up. I will try to maintain the same schedule, which was getting up 4:30 in the morning. Battling through the pain. There was horrible pain after the brain surgeries, but that was still in the hospital. When I got home, it was more about the wobbliness, like getting up, and people were afraid of me. "Don't walk in the dark. You can't walk." It was overcoming the fear of tripping, of falling. I fell twice the first night I came home from the hospital, and that put the fear of me. If I bang my head,
yes,
it's all going to spill out.
Yes.
So it was just adjusting to that and the schedule. It was a very rigorous schedule. The scans, seeing Dr. Craig DeVoe, who became my the lead oncologist, going for all the PET scans and being organized. And then the secondary thing, like I had a blood clot in my leg. I had to have a filter put in my chest, an IBC filter, the rashing, all the other wonderful things that happen when you're sick. Cancer isn't bad enough on its own,
right,
but it's all the the other stuff that happens to you along the way. And there was one moment when I rashed from like my head to my toes. I looked like a sideshow attraction from the 19th century. I turned a bright red, sitting in beach traffic, going to the ER, saying to my wife, I want to die. I don't want, but that was just a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny now because I went to they gave me the Benadryl and the rash went away. You learn to live with certain things and make fun of the things that you can't have, you have no control over. And again, I know it's easy for me to say, but I say this I speak to new patients all the time. I've got a network of survivors of other cancer patients. And the thing is, if you can't laugh, try it and just laugh.
Tell me a little bit about your network and how that evolved, and you're giving back, obviously, which is wonderful. But tell me a little bit about that.
Social media. I was posting the pictures of me post-surgery, laying in bed. A friend of my wife's from high school contacted me and said, I have a friend. He's got prostate cancer. Can you speak to him? And I thought for a second, and I'm thinking, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not a social worker. I'm not a healthcare professional. But sure, why not? And the first call we shared together was 3 hours long.
Wow.
And it was just two guys comparing, we've got families. We've been, all our aspirations have been temporarily scuttled by cancer. He became the guy. And then other people, hey, my dad's going through immunotherapy, the same treatment you're on. Can you speak to him? And he was in Los Angeles. And we would trade pictures back and forth in the treatment center with the needles in our arms. And just at one point, I had 7 or 8 patients that I would speak to regularly. And it was great for me to be able to share my perspective. It was great for me to hear theirs. And it was comforting to everybody involved.
And is that
my wife would come?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
My wife would come home and say, "What'd you do today?" "Oh, I spoke to so and so. How'd it go?" "Great. He's doing okay, but I'm concerned about this one." And even my oncologist, which was very flattering to me, said, "Hey, I got this guy. He's got what you have. Do you mind speaking to him?" And that became another initial 3-hour call. I should have been billing by the hour, but right. I got such satisfaction in talking it through. And, I'm blessed with the ability to do the marathon, even though it takes me 10 hours now, not, 4 hours when I was healthy. But to use that as an example of, hey, let's just do it. It's the Nike thing. Just do it. It has so much truth to it.
Yes. Well, you're paying it forward, obviously, but that must be good tonic for you, good medicine for your soul as well.
Absolutely. Even when I'd go for treatment, you'd be sitting in the waiting area with other people and, you're giving the thumbs up. And, cancer warriors, as I like to call us, have a certain way of communicating. There's a certain humanity. There's a certain sensitivity, a connectivity to the universe that you don't realize until you're faced with a fatal illness. Not just cancer, but other things. My wife's my nephew, my dear nephew, right now is a warrior, and we talk and we exchange notes. And another member of the family's sick. It's my responsibility to step up somehow.
Alan, I don't know if you've ever heard of this group, but they're called Man Up to Cancer. They're a group out of Maine, and I know them very, very well. Because a lot of times men don't want to talk about their issues, like their cancer issues, and perhaps I'll send you an email after this. I'll share a link with them. But you'd love for you to touch base with them. Their founder is a gentleman by the name of Trevor Maxwell, who I've interviewed on Believe in Progress, and real inspiring group. And it sounds like the kind of work that you do would be actually very inspiring for them as well. But
I appreciate that.
Amazing group. Because you were an avid runner, do you think that did that help you? Did that help your kind of coming back from cancer?
Absolutely. In fact, my physicians, both Dr. Shoulder and Dr. DeVoe, are of the opinion that because I had a level of fitness when I got diagnosed, that it got me out of bed quicker. It may have saved my life as well. I was an avid runner for 35 years prior to getting sick, and it became a part of my life. And I do absolutely feel that by having that level of fitness and just the motivation to get up and out really saved me.
So back in the day, what was your like training schedule and like your best marathon? And I'd love to hear what your time was back in the day.
I learned that having two small children, the key to marathon training was getting up before everybody else. And I
Right.
completely readjusted my biorhythm. I get up at 4 a.m. I try to do my requisite 40 to 50 miles a week, do the long runs, the 18 to 20 milers, stay on schedule. It was always nice to have that focus here in New York for November.
Yes.
It was life. It became a life affirmation, certainly after I got sick, but way before I did. It was my thing. And then as I progressed and the marathon got bigger and bigger, and you couldn't get in every year as an entrant, I became a volunteer with Achilles International. But still the same focus, training, getting ready. Marathon Sunday, the first Sunday in November, is like the world's biggest party here in New York City.
Yeah.
And I always felt, even, again, I think about it now, if one of my big concerns when I first got diagnosed was doing the marathon in fall 2017, either there's something wrong with me or this really was a part of my life. And it really is.
How'd you get involved with Achilles?
When I started doing the marathon in 1992, and as the marathon grew and they were limiting the local entries and allowing foreign runners to come in, I decided to volunteer with Achilles. It was very self-serving, admittedly. Oh, I'll volunteer this year. And they paired me with some blind athletes, and it was astounding, absolutely astounding. One year I was with a Japanese woman who was a stroke survivor. She was the last person to finish in 2008. The very, very last. Okay. We finished in darkness in 14 hours. And the look on her face was, I couldn't believe how great it was. And then I was working out with blind runners from Japan every year. They'd request me in April. And I started doing that. And every couple of years, I do it as an entrant. And then when I got sick, I went from being a guide to being guided. It was very poetic. The first thing I did after I got out was I joined Achilles as an athlete. And there's a chapter here in Queens, which is convenient for me, and I love it.
So I know a young man who's like a senior person at Achilles, and I think he like a senior development officer at Achilles. And we've talked a lot about the mission and just an amazing organization. We're a charity partner at the Philadelphia Marathon weekend here, and we have a bunch of Achilles athletes that participate, and it's really heartwarming to see these athletes, go after it and finish and just, really do some remarkable things.
It's a remarkable day. In fact, I know that Philadelphia has a chapter of Achilles.
Yes. Yes, they do.
We had a big meetup in Central Park yesterday, and it was joyous. But the nice thing that New York Roadrunners allows us to do for the New York City Marathon, ambulatory athletes with disabilities get an early start. So we're at the foot of the Verrazano Bridge before 53,000 other people. And we get an early start. So at least we're in the race. If we're going to finish last, it's nice to have people pass and be part of the event. It is, I said, it's the world's biggest, greatest moving party. And if you're in New York City on marathon weekend, it's fantastic.
So my youngest daughter finished the New York Marathon a number of years ago. And my wife and I, we kind of plotted the course, at the 8 mile mark, at this mark, and all that. And it is unbelievable to be a fan as part of that, part of the city and that whole joyous occasion. So it's must be unbelievable as a runner to participate in the event.
I can't not do it. And even while I was in treatment, I'd go for my infusion on Tuesday before Marathon Sunday. The nurses who were runners would all come around and we'd high five. And then I was going for infusions every other week. And I'd come back every year, and this is like my 7th or 8th year doing it post-diagnosis. I send my neurosurgeon and my oncologist finish line pictures, and they use that as a way of showing other patients, hey, here's a guy, look what he's doing. And I just love doing that for them.
Alan, you've been in remission since 2020. Is that accurate?
Yes. 2.5 years after starting immunotherapy, I had a stubborn lesion in my lung, so they added another 6 months of immunotherapy. But in late January 2020, I was in remission. My doctor doesn't like using the remission word. I'm in surveillance mode, but it's remission.
What is that? What's his word? Surveillance?
Surveillance, meaning we're going to just continue going for CT scans and MRIs and keep an eye on you, do blood work. But I mean, 99% of every other, it's just the way he is.
But you're done with your immunotherapy, right?
Yes, that was 2.5 years. And the last, upon a clean PET scan and a clean brain MRI, we made you're clean.
And what was the immunotherapy that you were on, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure. Initially, it was double agent. It was nivolumab and ipilimumab. And then that started in July 2017. In 2017, it was nivolumab only every other week. And that went on for 2.5 years. Again, because of a stubborn lesion, we added another 6 months of therapy and additional radiation to the lung. And thankfully, it didn't light up when we did the PET scan. So that was a good sign.
And when you were on immunotherapy, any side effects or from that, or?
The only side effects I had, and I'm grateful because I never got sick. I was training for marathons, was rashing and an itch that was unbelievable.
Okay.
It just crazy. But I took it over pain. I took it over stomach distress. I got up every day, even though I was scratching. I was out of bed and out the door.
But it saved your life, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, right now, the thing is, I'll always ask my doctor, so who's the longest surviving patient you have who's been on what I'm, the question always is, like the little thought bubble in my head is, how long is this going to last? And hopefully forever. I'm 66. So, I feel like I was diagnosed at 59. Prior to diagnosis, I thought, I don't want to turn 60. Right. Then I was praying to turn 60 and I did. And now I'm 66. I'm always curious how long I can go for now. You can be walking outside and a truck can run you over. I realize there are other things that can happen, but and I'm not concerned about it. I'm not hung up about it, but I'm always wondering if I go for a scan, I go for a CT scan next Tuesday, and this anxiety is the joke. It's like, my lung, and then I do the brain MRI a week later. And I'm always a little like, okay, I've been doing well. I hope to continue doing well.
Well, you're a young guy. You're going to be fine.
Thank you.
I'd love to know what advice would you give to other cancer patients and survivors about staying active and maintaining a positive outlook during the recovery?
I think getting out initially, when you go out, suddenly all the world comes to you. Things that didn't make sense to you before. I always tell the story. I was out walking after my diagnosis, and a bee landed on a dandelion, and I stood there staring at it for like 10 minutes. It was very zen-like. If you get out of the house, suddenly you're sharing. People are asking you. You're seeing things you didn't see before. I always felt that movement was the greatest therapy. Even if it was just, I have a friend now who's been sick, and I walk with him a couple of times a week. We try to. And we got to get out of the house. We just got to move. And when you're moving, you're joking, you're thinking, you're doing, and it's very important to stay in motion.
I again, when I had my surgery, and I like you, I like to move and get up and get around, and I would go out into the backyard and just kind of go up. And my wife was like ready to kill me, but I had to just go back and forth and walk back and forth in the very beginning. And, they said you got to obviously, they were worried obviously of falling as well.
Sure.
But boy, I think, that you're absolutely right. Getting out and, being safe about it, but getting out and about is extremely important. So as you prepare for this year's marathon, which will happen this fall, and it's early November, right? Is the New York Marathon?
Yes, November 3rd this year.
What does the upcoming race, what does it mean to you? What's the symbolism that for you personally and just about the whole journey?
It's another year on the planet for me, another year that I stayed healthy, motivated, and prepared. And along the way, I meet other people. Hey, I'm doing the marathon for the first time. Healthy runners. Hey, what's your advice? My neighbor is training. He's 23. And I'm always I try to hold off from giving him advice unless he asks for it. It's the ability to share your, 30, this will be my 31st time doing it. To think back when I was a young man, think back before I got sick, think back after I got sick. It's these little milestones in my life that have added up. And it's the great adventure. I'm blessed also. I'm a member of New York Roadrunners 15 Plus Club, which means I automatically get in every year because I've done more than 15 marathons as an entrant.
So you don't have to apply or anything like that, right?
No lottery. They just say, hey, do you want to do it this year? Yep, count me in. And then, I get my new pair of running shoes and I start my training. I'm training all year round, really. I always like to joke, I'm ready for the marathon on any given Sunday.
ASIC's still the shoe sponsor?
Well, amazingly enough, Brooks sponsored the Philadelphia Marathon a few years ago. And my friend who lives in Philadelphia said, I get 2 free pairs of Brooks. Tell me what size you wear. Okay. I don't wear Brooks. She said, I wanted to send you that's all I wear now are Brooks. Thanks to her, my friend Janet King, if she's listening, sent me Brooks, and I'm on like my 50th pair since she gifted me. So I don't know if it's ASICS in Philadelphia. New York, it changes year to year.
Yeah, we need to get you to Philadelphia. It's after New York, so you'd be in great shape for it, I'm sure.
That was always right. If you didn't get into New York, well, I'm going to Philadelphia.
It's still the same way. And the good news is that we're starting to set record numbers in Philadelphia. So marathons are strong. They've come back really, really strong. So I always ask everybody that I host on the podcast a couple of last questions, if you don't mind. And one of them is about mentorship. And just wondering, in your career, did you have some mentors, and what did those mentors teach you that have like really guided you both personally and professionally?
Mentoring meant showing compassion and understanding and patience. It's amazing. When I was working in television, a lot of these young people were half my age. Now they're giving back. They're shooting with me, and we're like trading. I'm an old guy. They're teaching me new tricks. And mentorship means, you give and you take, and whatever you give, you get back.
Did you have mentors early in your career?
I did. I was a kid who got out of college in 1980, so the whole scheme of things was different. The whole workplace was different, but I did. And at a very young age, I was given amazing opportunities, and I always appreciated that. Travel and responsibility beyond what I was capable of. I worked in film. I had an English degree from college. I was ill-equipped, but they believed in me. It was amazing.
Why did you pick film and TV? What moved you in that direction?
I always loved television. I always loved production, the activity, seeing, being out on the street and seeing people shooting stuff. And I decided when I got out of school, living in New York or LA were the two places you'd be. And I was lucky because I lived here. And there was always work. It was always exciting. It was always different. My friends were in law school. I was working in television, working on a movie. Mm-hmm. And that's all I ever did. And in my third act, late in career, I was writing, I was creating. Then I got sick, but I had sold a sitcom that I won't say anything more than that actually at the very last minute got pulled, which in a way was a blessing because I could not have worked on it, my condition. But I'm still writing, and I also taught myself to paint. The other important thing I should tell you, Mitch, is like the ability, not only movement, but like thinking and doing, making stuff, creating was extremely helpful to me. Extremely.
That's great. So last question for you. What source or sources of inspiration do you turn to when you're facing challenges or you need motivation in your personal or professional life?
I turn to fellow athletes at Achilles International. There are people there with challenges that are incredible. I'll tell you real quickly, my first marathon in 1992, I was on 4th Avenue in Brooklyn. There was a gentleman in a wheelchair kicking backwards with his one working leg. His name is Bill Riley. And he has done like 100 marathons since. He's now a teammate of mine. I see people doing stuff like that, like extraordinary challenges, and that inspires me. My daughter is training for the New York Marathon. She's got a bib to participate in the New York Marathon this year. So if that comes to pass, I'm going to have to find out, your number and all that good stuff like that, because my wife and I would be rooting for you as my daughter runs by, but I'll be looking for you, Alan. I would love that, Mitch. There's nothing greater than at the marathon, somebody's, hey, Alan, we see people along the way.
But we need to get you to the city of brotherly and sisterly love here. Philly's a great town.
On my list, I've never done a marathon outside of New York City. It's probably time to do that.
Always a first, Alan. There's always a first.
I'll keep that in mind. Thanks.
Well, listen, it's been a great pleasure to have you here today. And, I just love your story and love how you give back. I think that's really remarkable. And, the fact you get up at 4:30 in the morning. I get up pretty early too, but not that early. I get up at 5:15. But keep it up, Alan, and keep giving back to those cancer survivors and newly diagnosed cancer patients. That's really important, the kind of work that you're doing. And I certainly hope that our paths will cross again here at some point in time in the near future.
Mitch, I appreciate our time today, and thanks to you and the group.
Great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Alan, for sharing your inspiring journey with us today. Your story is a powerful reminder of the advancements in cancer treatment and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. To our listeners, we hope Alan's story has inspired you as much as it has inspired us. For more information about the latest in cancer research and how you can support initiatives like these, please visit aacr.org. And remember to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode, and share this podcast with friends and family to spread hope and awareness. Because together we can drive progress and bring hope to countless lives. Thank you for listening to the Believe in Progress podcast. Keep believing in progress and the power of hope in the fight against cancer. And remember, cancer research saves lives.